welcome back to the channel. As you may know, I'm Nimboro, and today I'm so stoked because I have my friend Lizzie Pie. Liz. Liz is my friend. Actually, she was friends with my husband first, and I just got to just snatch her from him. So I am really humbled and privileged. And she also happens to be Trevor's mom. So if you watched last week's episode or last week's video, you saw Trevor just giving a testimony of his life. So we just wanted to get a perspective, like his mom's perspective, especially like being a single mom, and yeah, just sharing about all that. So yay, welcome, and here we go.
I'm Liz. As she said, I am Trevor's mom. I also have a daughter named Jasmine. I think after hearing Trevor's testimony, it's hard for me to hear because you see some things that I wasn't aware of for a long time. I have been a single mom since Trevor was 3. So my daughter was 1. So that in and of itself has presented some challenges. My mom was a single mom, so I learned a lot of strength from her and my grandmother. They had a philosophy of you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you just keep going, whether or not it's easy or not. You put one foot in front of the other. Many times as a single mom, you felt overwhelmed with guilt. Like you work too many hours because you have to pay all the bills. You can't share them with someone, or you have to be mom and dad and trying to juggle like how to do things like Father's Day cards at school when they don't. So I got Mother's Day and Father's Day cards. I get them all. They do have a dad that they interact with very minimally, but they do have a dad that is in South Carolina. I was probably 11 when I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior. Africa actually drew me to Jesus. My grandparents were missionaries here in East Africa, Kenya and Tanzania. So I always knew about Africa. Never thought I'd actually come, but I always knew about it. They were missionaries here, and every 4 years they would come home and share a bunch of stories. And so we knew a lot about the Maasai tribe because that's who they worked with. And just so happened at 11 years old, my camp counselor was a missionary kid from Africa. So we connected on that level, and I was able to understand and ask a lot of questions similar to Trevor's, like seeking out information to find out who this Jesus was. And I actually thought that once you accepted Jesus, that your life got like so much better easy. And that no more troubles. Like forget these problems. Who has problems? Jesus loves me.
And he saved me.
And I found the problems got worse. And I was like, what is this? I don't understand what this is. And I came to realize, I struggled for so many years about the Bible passage, and forgive me, I don't know the actual Bible passage reference of character produces hope, hope produces perseverance, and it all starts with suffering.
We shall insert it in the description.
All starts through suffering, and I was like, wait, what is this? I don't understand. So the things that I found that I went through as a single mom, or even earlier in teenage years, for years I couldn't understand why in the world God would I felt like I was a pretty good person. I loved people. I'm happy most of the time, easy to get along with. I just like people. I'm a people person. So it's like, why is all this suffering? Like, what did I do to deserve this? And then when you look at what Jesus did, dying for all of us, and then later on in life, people came into my life that I was the only one that could help them because I had gone through that, and I was like, oh,
I get it now.
That's what you meant. And so there have been many single moms that are at the end of their rope. I've been there thinking I can't do this. And I think the purpose in struggles is so you realize you can't do it and that you need to depend on God. So many people, I moved from South Carolina when my kids were 3 and 5 to Massachusetts because my mom remarried and lived up there, and I needed to be closer to my mom. I was working so many hours, I never really saw my kids much. So my sister and I worked out a deal. She was go to school in Boston, keep the kids at night. I would work night shift and keep them during the day. And we did that for about 7 years. So it worked out really nicely. I didn't only had to work one job, which was like amazing. That has not since lived its life, and I'm back to 3, but that's okay. It is what it is. My kids are worth it. But many times as a single mom, I think probably the most easy thing for Satan to jab me with is guilt. Guilt that I didn't realize my children had all these underlying issues. I don't know how to be the dad. Like teaching my son how to shave, YouTube.
You
Teaches you a lot of things, I would tell you.
Yeah.
I YouTubed how to tie a tie. I YouTubed how to shave because I'm like, oh, well, do you buy the electric ones? Do you do the shaving cream on shavers? And you shave differently than we women do. We women shave up, men don't shave up. You shave up, it hurts. I learned that. There's just so lots of things that you have to figure out. As a single mom, you figure out all these little things. And I used to tell my stepdad that I would pay him a lot of money to have the talk with my son, because I didn't want to have the talk with my son. He was like, oh no, that's every parent's dream. They have to do it. And I was like, oh, wow.
How awkward is it though?
Most
How awkward is it?
it's very awkward. Yeah.
Did you do it?
Yes, I did.
How old was he?
He was probably 12. I got a pamphlet from the pediatrician's office and nonchalantly gave it to him to read and said, we're going to talk about this with any questions that you have. And he was like,
oh my gosh. And for those of you who don't know what the talk is, it's the sex talk. So yeah.
Yeah, doing those kinds of things with my daughter, A-okay.
Yeah.
Been there, done that, understand how that works. But for boys, I don't really know how that works.
Yeah.
So most of my young single mother years was spent trying to make sure he had Christian men in his life. That could be the role models that I just don't know how to be as a single mom. And one of the ones he mentioned is our youth pastor, who actually like completely took him under his wing. He was like, I got to try to connect with Trevor. How can I connect with Trevor? And I was like, football, American football. That's how you talk to Trevor. And just so happened he used to play American football. So they started meeting and talking about those kinds of things. And that little tiny ounce of extra attention was enough to create a pathway to get him more interested in youth group. And as you heard, it was a Maundy Thursday service that connected him to God, which I thought was the strangest thing in the world, because of all the services, that's not a fun one. It's a somber, the cross, walk up to the cross service. Lights are down, music's low. Like, it's very not a child enticing service to go to, but it really touched him, and I was super amazed. But I was telling you, life as a single mom can easily be surrounded by guilt. Very easily. Guilt that you didn't know some of the things that were going on with him. Guilt that I didn't know some of the things that were going on with my daughter. And what if I'd have done it this way? So what if I would have done it this way? And I think we can all what if our life into 100 different ways. But God has graciously told me, no matter the circumstance, I'm with you. And I had this aha moment at a women's conference a couple of years ago. I always wondered how you rejoice in some of the worst circumstances. And one of my things is I drown in circumstances sometimes, and I have to purposely focus myself back on Jesus, because otherwise I'm like, there's so much stuff I'm going, I can't breathe. I'm drowning. So this I was like, I don't know how to rejoice in the bad times. And my friend looked at me and she goes, you don't rejoice in the bad times. The Bible says rejoice in the Lord. Doesn't say in the circumstance. So that there's always something about God that you can rejoice about, regardless of whether you're drowning in the ocean or walking along happy. And that was an aha moment for me. And I was like, oh, wow, I get it now. I'm not supposed to be happy in the things that I'm suffering with, because that's a tall order, to be happy in the struggles. I'm supposed to be happy in who God is and what he's done for me, and that was way easier to do. And if you focus yourself on that, everything else seems a little bit brighter.
As I said earlier on, we have Trevor's mom back, and she's just going to be sharing her journey as a single mom, and then having to discover all these like things that are happening with her child and how she's journeyed through that and seen God's faithfulness through it. Yeah. So we're going to ask Liz to introduce herself. Then we'll go from there.
I'm Liz, Trevor's mom. I also have a daughter named Jasmine. Oh, yeah. We live in the Boston, Massachusetts area now, but we're originally from South Carolina. I've been a single mom, Jasmine, 16 years. Wow. 16 years I've been a single mom with many challenges along the way. Being mom and dad and figuring all that out together.
Yeah. Okay, so cool. So when we're listening to Trevor's testimony, I think the one thing that jumped out to me is when he was saying actually like the dad left when he was 2 years old?
He was 3.
He was 3. So could you maybe just take us back there like what was going through your mind? Like now you have two babies under 5. So what was really going through your mind? And
it started with, it ended up being kind of a mutual decision for their dad to leave.
Okay.
He had been spending all of the money that we had for rent on various things. And it was my mom actually who said, you can be broke by yourself and still be able to feed your kids. Because that was the problem. We were running out of money. We didn't have rent money or food money. But after a lot of talking to him, he would just get angry, and he finally just decided, I can't, I was like, I can't do this. We're going to have to leave so that at least one of us can take care of our children. And then he left and didn't have a whole lot to do with the kids. And initially it was a big shock to wake up and realize I have 2 children under the age of 3. And what in the world am I going to do? Like having to find daycares that would take them for days, so daytime while I worked, and then working evening shift to pay for other bills, and then occasionally working nights to cover different expenses that we had come up with. And it was just, initially was a big shock. I did find another church to go to close by that was a lot of help for the 2 of us. I did have my aunts and uncles in a nearby town, but my mom was up in Massachusetts because she had remarried and moved up here, and my sister was on the other end of the state, so I didn't have a lot of like close-knit help that could help me with the kids. So the first couple of years were rocky because I felt like I never saw my kids because I would see them when they were asleep and then usher them off to the next person that would watch them so that I could work to pay the bills. So when my sister actually wanted to move up to Massachusetts so she could go to school in Boston, but couldn't afford to live there, she came up with the idea of, what if we lived together? And she would watch the kids during the nighttime. I would work at night and keep them during the day time. And at that point, they were 3 and 5. And so I was like, why not? And I was looking for a change and looking for more positive influences for the 2 of them. So we decided to uproot all of the family up to Massachusetts. And my sister did keep them at night while I worked. And then I only had to work 1 job. So that was a big plus. I got to see them. I spent a lot of days exhausted because you get off night shift and you have to stay awake till you can drop them off at school, to the point that my son told his 2nd grade teacher that he thought I was an alcoholic because I was so sleepy when I got home from work that I didn't make a whole lot of sense. There's not a drop of alcohol in my house.
Oh my
So luckily the teacher was like, you need to have a talk. So I was like, what is it that you think I do at night? So,
why are you telling people I'm not telling me?
So, the little things that have made a big difference in being a single mom is being closer to my mom.
Okay.
And even though we're still like 2.5 hours apart, it's easy, like on a trip like this, she's watching my daughter.
Oh, yeah.
So, and having my sister for a while, for about 7 years, lived in Massachusetts with us. And then she went off to Haiti because she does international public health. So she's off to Haiti. But we had, for a good solid 7 years, of me only having to work 1 job and being home with them, trying back and forth to get them to still maintain a relationship with their dad and his side of the family, particularly their grandfather, because he loved them to pieces. But that was about twice a year I would drive down to bring them down, and then it became more like once a year. And then in the summertime, their dad's brother takes them for a week, so they had to have some interaction with that side of the family. And there is no malice between me and their father. It was just, we have to do something to take care of, one of us has to take care of the kids. When I was, like I said, I was telling you before, I became a Christian when I was 11.
Okay.
Probably my senior year in high school, we started straying a little bit. I ended up pregnant at 18 after my first semester away at college, and came home, and my family obviously was not thrilled to find out that I was pregnant with Trevor, but I had Trevor when I had just turned 19 a few months prior. So I was joking with him because he just turned 19. I was like, imagine now at 19, you having a child. And he was like, I can't. So it was very much a life-altering thing. It was not planned. We did try to make it work. We stayed together to the point that I got pregnant with my second child, Jasmine, when I was 21.
Yeah.
But then by 22, I was a single mom.
But had you gone back to school? Like now, what?
I had gone back to school for nursing when Trevor was a baby.
Okay.
So I finished when Jasmine was born.
Oh, okay. So by the time he was born, you were already a certified nurse.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, not by the time he was born.
Okay,
by the time she was born.
She was born, sorry, my bad. Okay, cool. So like, I would just take me through you telling your parents like you're pregnant. And then, so play. How did that go?
So I didn't know how to tell my mom initially, but I knew I was pregnant before I came home for Christmas break. So I came home with all of my belongings, knowing that I wasn't going back to the Christian school that I had left because I was pregnant. And my mom noticed I wasn't eating some of the same things that I usually eat. My mother, by the way, is a labor and delivery nurse, so she knows all about pregnant women. And about 3 days into it, she goes, "You're pregnant, aren't you?"
3 days of you being home?
Yeah. Because I couldn't like the smells of certain things, and so she was like, "You're pregnant, aren't you?" And then so that was Christmas, my 18th birthday.
Merry Christmas, mommy!
Yeah. So she was not happy with me. Initially, it was obviously a shock to my entire family. My parents are divorced, so telling my mom and then having to call it my dad, which my dad, I'm not the first child that showed up pregnant before they were supposed to, so he was like, it's not the best thing in the world, but whatever. But I was my mom's first baby, and she couldn't even grasp the concept, which now that I am her age, when she found out I was pregnant, I could see how if you came to me today, one of my children was like, hey, I'm like, no, I'm not ready to be a grandmother. Like, what is this? But everyone, kind of by the end of it, was for probably pretty much my entire pregnancy with Trevor, my mom and I weren't really speaking. My sister and I weren't really speaking because it had driven this huge wedge between us. They didn't like him, obviously, because he got me pregnant at 18. And he was older than me. He was about 4 years older than me. So my mom didn't like that either. And so they showed up in the labor and delivery room for the first time. I had not spoken to them much in about 6 months.
Wow.
And my mom used to work at the hospital, so the nurse called her and told her that I was coming in for an induction. So they showed up. Very awkward.
Wait, so once you told her she was not happy, so you went back to school, or now you weren't staying home with them?
Right now, I had stayed with them for about a month, but then my mom, that was the time my mom remarried and moved here. So she had to go ahead and move here.
Massachusetts, we're in Kenya.
Massachusetts. Sorry, I'm not home.
It's okay.
Massachusetts. So she moved to Massachusetts. I was in South Carolina. I stayed in South Carolina, like I said, until my son was 5.
Wow. Okay, so now fast forward again. So now Trevor's dad, you and him have agreed. Things are not working out. We're separating. Then you've kind of gone into some sort of slump because things are not really working out. And then now you have to be both mom and dad. I'm sure that was really, really difficult for you.
I would say probably for the first 3 to 6 months, the only reason I got out of bed was because I had children to take care of. Because I just couldn't have imagined at my age this is what my life was going to be like. Working 3 jobs, hardly seeing them, like floundering. I don't care how prepared you are to have children, you never know. There's no book out there that goes, this child does this at this age and this one does this at this age. No idea.
So different.
So at every phase of life you flounder a little bit because you're like, I don't know, what is this? This toddler, and then you get to toddler, and then you get to school age, and then you get to the really fun part of teenage. And I can tell you now, all these women that I know that have teenagers and then they have another baby, I'm like, was it a mistake? Because I'm not sure I'd do it again. Not after what I see what they turn into now.
I'm going to cross that bridge. I'm not going back.
So I would say for probably about 6 months, it was really like a concentrated effort. Get out of bed. You have to take care of your kids. Get out of bed. And then I actually found a local church I had left my church when all this had happened. And we found another church that the kids loved going to. And can I tell you a funny story? So you and I both know that Jesus isn't still walking around physically. So I remember when Trevor was 3 at the church, he got to come and watch an Easter play with me, or Christmas play with me. in the big sanctuary. And he always had a children's program over here. And he kept saying, I'm so excited. I'm like, why? And he goes, because I'm going to see Jesus today. And I'm like,
oh, he's in big church.
huh? And he goes, yeah, Mom, Jesus is not a kid. Jesus is a grown-up. So I'm in grown-up church. So I'm going to see Jesus. And this little lady next to me with this cute little baby starts chuckling. I'm like, laugh it up, Chuckles. Your baby's going to do the same thing. Try explaining the Holy Trinity to a 3-year-old.
Like he came like so eager.
So excited. He was
Jesus
so
would just be
excited.
walking among the people.
He just thought he was going to meet him. He was going to physically be there. And I was like,
wow, that's all right.
yeah.
Yeah, send it.
Yeah.
Let me just take you through, the Bible one more time. For this time.
But he just knew
Yeah.
that Jesus he's not a child. He was a grown-up. And so he must be in grown-up church.
Yeah. Okay, so Abby, I wanted to ask you. So now this sweet Trevor who's like 3, and it's like Jesus is walking among them, it's like in the sanctuary, then to the Trevor who now you're getting a phone call that your child has been beating other people in school, like someone with a pencil. Even his testimony is so funny, like with a pencil and busy like poking people. What happened?
So I actually had zero idea that was what he was going through. I knew he struggled with the fact that his dad wasn't around much and that his dad didn't have a lot of attention to give to the kids. I knew that part, but I had no idea of the rest of it. I had no idea that he was bullied, and I had no idea that he became a bully. I had no clue. He was very tight-lipped about both of those. And so when I'm on the plane, in getting ready to go get on the plane, I get the call that the principal says I have to come pick up my son, after I had just told my brother, don't worry, they're great. The worst thing they're going to do is fight with each other. Oh, wow. Trevor got suspended for the first time in his life.
When you're on a plane
and then
for a mission trip.
2 days later, he got suspended again. And I was like, what is wrong with this? So I considered it myself is that Satan couldn't affect me too much unless he messed with my children, and that was just a jab to keep me focused on something else. But then I got home and it all started like coming to light, like how much he had been fighting and how much he was bullying people, which at home, he doesn't do that. He doesn't, he's kind of quiet, but his dad is also very quiet. Okay. So I just figured, he doesn't really talk much, so I never had a single clue that he was a bully and that he had bullied other kids until I got the telephone call that he throat punched some child, and that I was fortunate that the child wasn't injured. And I was like, it's my child? My child did this? And I was like, we don't do that in our house. Like, we don't do this. Like, what is this? So that was a complete shock. But little did I know there was a worse shock coming a few years later from my other child than that one. So it's been a series of being a single mom is kind of like wading in the deep water. Sometimes you sink a little bit more. Sometimes you float a little better. But it's been, luckily for me, God has surrounded me with people who have been good influences and could help me, let me cry, and tell me. So I often get asked, I don't know how you do what you do. And I'm like, I don't have a choice. You can't just be like, oh, bye, kids. I had you.
Real things.
It's fun. Peace. Bye. Have fun. Have a nice life.
Anymore.
So it was a very big shock to hear that he had been bullying. And some of it I didn't even realize until I actually heard him share his testimony for the first time. And then I was like, what?
That's how deep this was. So like what would your advice be like to young mothers, maybe people who find themselves in your same position, where they've gone maybe to university or they're in the last year of high school and they find themselves pregnant and things are not as favorable? Because like for you, you've gone through your family not really accepting your pregnancy and things didn't turn out so great with your baby daddy, if that's what I would call him. And then like now the twists and turns of life, like now you have a son and a daughter who like once they hit teenagehood, like things really hit the fan. So what would your advice to them be, or like just, if you could just throw, what do people say, like you throw what? Like a lifesaver boat jacket or something to like drag them in?
I think the biggest thing I would tell people that find themselves in that situation is to remember it's okay to not be okay.
Oh, okay.
Because for many, many, many months, I beat myself up on not being okay. And that finally I realized I don't have to be okay. I just have to keep going, and to find to rely on the faith in God that I have, and to find a church that's very supportive. But the biggest thing is to remember it's okay to have bad days. That life isn't going to be perfect. Lord knows it's not perfect. But to have a faith, I don't know how people would do this without faith in Jesus and faith that there is a God out there who loves you, because otherwise I would have thrown in the towel a long time ago. But I think you have to have faith. And I think you have to be okay with the days that aren't okay. And I did share with you before, many times I drown in my circumstances, and I have to physically tell myself, remember the cross, and those aha moments of rejoicing in the Lord, not in I don't have enough money to make this happen, or my children need this, but I have to ask someone else to help them because I can't do it. And being riddled with guilt is very common in single motherhood. And I would just say, take it one day at a time, sometimes 1 hour at a time.
Oh, wow.
As days are bad with toddlers, now teenagers, sometimes it's 1 hour at a time, sometimes it's 1 minute at a time. And sometimes I go to bed and go, Lord, I failed. Guess I'll try again tomorrow.
Yeah.
And just knowing not to take on the guilt that I'm this horrible person that failed. I'm human. And the only thing most parents do is the best they can. You just do the absolute best you can. But you need a support network. And if you don't have one in your own family, I turn to my church family. Because in Massachusetts, I don't have very much family around. My sister just moved back. But I just have my mom like 3 hours away. So if one of my kids gets sick at school and I can't get to them, like my church family, I have friends that I can call to come and pick them up and help out a lot.
Wow. And practically, what would it look like rejoicing in the Lord? Because I know this is a phrase we throw around in the Christian circles, like, oh my gosh, rejoice in the Lord. You're going through a hard time, rejoice in the Lord. But like for you, practically, there is something you shared that I found so profound. And I just love you to share it again, like not really focusing on you know how to tell it better.
So I had a moment in my life that I really struggled with the parts of the Bible, the verse of the Bible, and again, I don't remember the reference, that suffering begets perseverance, hope, character, and I just couldn't wrap my head around how anything I was going through at the time could possibly turn out good. Like what? Good for who? Not me. And I would drown in the fact that I am still a single mother. I struggle with the father. Like, how do you do the father stuff? YouTube. You look up how to make a tie on YouTube. Shave YouTube. I struggle with a lot of the, filling that other gap for my children, knowing I'm not filling the other gap very well, but I tried. And they know I've tried. But I found that instead of drowning in those circumstances, I had to really physically remember the character traits that who God is, that he'll never leave me. He upholds me with his righteous right hand. He's with me wherever I go, and he can be with me and my children at the same time, everywhere around the world. And just by kind of reciting some of those things in my head, I could kind of focus myself. Will I say it's perfect? No.
Yeah.
I still cry.
Yeah, definitely.
I still get overwhelmed. And those are the times that I go to God and go, I'm sorry, I'm really struggling to trust how this is going to work. Yeah. Like, how do I do this? And he says, one day at a time. So it's the Nemo, Dory, just keep swimming, swimming, swimming. You just keep swimming. That's all you can do.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Liz.
You are so welcome.
I know this is pre-recorded and that's fine, but would you just please pray for maybe someone who's watching this and just needs just that touch from God and just an encouragement from a fellow sister that it's okay.
I will.
Yeah.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, you know who's out here watching this video and hearing these words, Lord. You know that there's someone out there that was just like me, lost, afraid, and alone. And Lord, you know the people that you've already set up to be a part of her or his life. And you know the support networks that you have. And Lord, you're the greatest dad and the greatest guider and provider that there ever was. And Lord, you and who you are is what keeps us going. And Lord, I just pray that whomever is listening to this that needs that prayer, Lord, that you surround them with your love and your support and give them the courage to take it one day at a time, sometimes 1 hour at a time, sometimes 1 minute at a time, but just to keep going and to keep drawing strength from who you are. All this we ask in your most precious name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, thanks guys. See you in 2 weeks.